I think that if you are writing long biographies of your characters, of fictional characters, and this character, when they were 5 years old, they did this, and when they were 6 years old, they did that. Things that have nothing to do with the story you're telling. I think that you're getting involved with magical thinking, and that it's not going to work. I think that, especially when you're beginning the script, anything that isn't intention and obstacle is going to mess you up. I don't say, here's what this character would have eaten for breakfast when they were 5 years old. Okay, because it's not, the character was never 5 years old. The character was born at the age that they are when the lights come up. The character was only gets to be 5 years old if the character says, when I was 5 years old, I saw my father kill himself. Okay? It's then and only then that the character was 5 years old. I wouldn't take out a yellow legal pad and a pen and start writing down character traits. Okay? Let's see. He likes baseball and he likes creamy peanut butter, but not chunky peanut butter. And he likes this and he doesn't like that. And he parts his hair on the left side and that kind of thing. I don't think that any of that is going to come in handy. I don't think that there's a use for any of that. I think that what it's doing, I think that you're doing it because you feel like you're supposed to do it. I think you're doing it because you feel like the more human character traits you write down on this legal pad, the more human the character is going to be. What's going to happen is you're going to have a scene where a guy or a girl needs to convince their parents to loan them money for something, and you've got this yellow legal pad next to you, and you're figuring out how to work in creamy peanut butter into this scene, because these are the things that are going to make your character more human. Forget that, okay? Forget that stuff. Get this guy to get money from his parents. Obviously, if the first line of the scene is, Mom, Dad, I need money, and the second line of the scene is, no problem, how much? You've kind of overcome the obstacle a little quickly. But make him or her have to play their intention, and things are going to come up. You might stumble across a joke about creamy peanut butter, okay? And that's when your character likes creamy peanut butter. Oh, it was because there's this joke about it, okay? Put the yellow legal pad aside. Believe it or not, the properties of characters and the properties of people have very little to do with each other. I know it seems like the goal should be to have a character be as human as possible, and that's not the goal, or at least not my goal. That's something for critics to talk about, okay? That's something for audiences to talk about. It was such a human moment when they did this. It was so human when they did that. It revealed humanity when they did this. That's something that's inferred. That's not something that you do. It's the equivalent. Listen, there's something cool in painting about photorealism, where you look at something and it looks like a photograph, and then you see, gee, it actually somebody painted it. There's something cool about that. And yes, there is something cool about a writer who is trying to write the way people talk, who's trying to imitate that cadence and all of that, and an actor who is trying to behave exactly the way people behave. If you can accomplish that, you've done something. But what you've done is pretend to make a documentary, okay? And there are cases where that has an awesome effect. Spinal Tap, okay? Any faux documentary. But being as much like a human as possible isn't one of the parts of drama. It would be the equivalent of a singer trying their hardest to sound like a musical instrument. Okay? It would be a cool thing to do. Wow, my eyes were closed and she sounded exactly like a flute. But other than that, like being impressed by the accomplishment, wouldn't you rather listen to a flute? We've got one available, and a really good flautist. Let's do that. I'm not going to tell you how to approach writing characters that are different from yourself. That are, if you're a man writing a woman, if you're straight writing someone who's gay, if you're black writing someone who's white. I'm not going to tell you how to do it. I'll tell you what I do. Generally speaking, because I do write, from time to time I write about politics, and that includes social issues. Generally speaking, if there is a character who, I am a straight white Jewish male, and if there's a character who is something other than that, this is a long way of trying to say that I'll steer clear of trying to write about what it's like to be black in America in the 21st century, what it's like to be gay in America in the 21st century. And my contribution to equality will be having it be irrelevant to the story. And that's why I try to fill the writer's room with with smart people who aren't like me, who have different backgrounds, different perspectives, who will disagree with me politically, and who will, even if they don't believe it themselves, will be able to say, listen, Aaron, what you don't understand about the people I grew up with is this. I'll say, great. Now I've got an argument going. Now I've got two people in a room who can disagree about something, and their arguments will have equal weight, at least for a while. Every writer works differently. So what works and doesn't work for me doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work or not work for you. I have to have something in common with the characters that I'm writing. I have to not judge them at all. I have to find something in common with them. If I'm writing a character who maybe has the qualities of an anti-hero, who isn't so easy to like, I can't judge them. I have to write them as if they're making their case to God why they should be allowed into heaven. Whether it's Nicholson's character in A Few Good Men, Steve Jobs and the way he treats his daughter, Mark Zuckerberg and the way he treats everybody, I can't judge them. I have to find what it is about them that's like me and write from that point of view. In A Few Good Men, Nicholson has a speech on the stand, and the part that people remember is you can't handle the truth. The speech that comes after that is defending the idea that letting this one Marine, PFC William Santiago, die actually saved a ton of other lives.
You want answers?
I think I'm entitled.
You want answers?
I want the truth!
You can't handle the truth! Son, we live in a world that has walls, and those walls have to be guarded by men with guns. Who's gonna do it? You? You, Lieutenant Weinberg? I have a greater responsibility than you can possibly fathom. You weep for Santiago and you curse the Marines. You have that luxury. You have the luxury of not knowing what I know, that Santiago's death, while tragic, probably saved lives, and my existence, while grotesque and incomprehensible to you, saves lives. You don't want the truth because deep down in places you don't talk about at parties, you want me on that wall. You need me on that wall. We use words like honor, code, loyalty. We use these words as the backbone of a life spent defending something. You use them as a punchline. I have neither the time nor the inclination to explain myself to a man who rises and sleeps under the blanket of the very freedom that I provide, and then questions the manner in which I provide it. I would rather you just said thank you and went on your way. Otherwise, I suggest you pick up a weapon and stand a post. Either way, I don't give a damn what you think you are entitled to.
Did you order the code red?
I did the job.
Did you order the code red?
You're goddamn right I did!
The badness, to use a very broad word, with Nicholson's character is self-evident. I don't need to have him. I'll give you an interesting example. This doesn't have anything to do with writing, really. It has to do with acting. I saw when A Few Good Men was on stage, when it was on Broadway in New York, an understudy went on in one of the parts. I'm not going to tell you which one because I don't want this guy to accidentally see this somehow. An understudy went on in one of the parts. He was playing a Marine, okay? And because an understudy was going on, I went down to the theater just to check him out. These were all my friends, to see how he was doing. And he was awful, okay? He changed his voice, he changed his body. He was playing Marine Man. And I'm going to talk like this because I'm a Marine, and I'm tough, and I'm crazy. I was beside myself. And after the play, I went out for a couple of beers with a friend of mine in the cast, and I said, I don't understand. He doesn't need to be a great actor, but why can't he just say the words in his own voice, and you know, it'll all get done. And my friend said, it's because he doesn't believe that he is as much of a man as this character is. He doesn't believe he's as strong as this character is, so he has to start putting on Christmas ornaments, like changing his voice and changing the way he stands and everything. And so what does that have to do with what we're talking about? I don't agree with what Nicholson was saying on the stand. In fact, if you kind of sit and think about it, he sounded like a sociopath on the stand, and in fact was treated as such. He horrified the court and then was arrested. But I keep hearing about people like Bobby Knight, the former head basketball coach at Indiana and then Texas Tech, using that speech to inspire his players. There are a lot of people who get inspiration from it because when they hear that speech, they think, you know what? He's absolutely right. He has a point. You want me on that wall. You need me on that wall. And you know, you elites don't like to talk about that at parties. And so when I'm writing that speech, I've got to be, you know, that I have to come up with that argument and I believe in that argument when I'm writing it. If you don't, you really run the risk of having someone twirling their mustache. People like me don't write things that are meant to be read. They write things that are meant to be performed. So the actor is also going to play a part in, you know, now you're seeing it walk and talk and breathe. I can't think of a better example than Richard Schiff on The West Wing. Richard is he's a very special actor. He had just a lot of inner life going on. And I remember even 3 or 4 days into shooting the pilot of The West Wing, I didn't notice until the 3rd or 4th day that he was wearing a wedding ring on his hand. And I went up to him between takes and I said, God, I tell you, Richard, I never thought of Toby as being married. And Richard said, me neither. And I said, well, why are you wearing a wedding ring? And he said, so you can figure out why I'm wearing a wedding ring. And it became a thing. He's divorced, but still in love with his ex-wife. He doesn't want to take his wedding ring off yet.